Hello friends, it's time for another paint product review. A few of you, after watching this video, asked if I would go ahead and do a review on the Rembrandt watercolor paints. So I went ahead and purchased a set. I'm so excited about these. This is the Rembrandt Watercolor Portrait Colors. It's a half pan set of just 12 colors. It says this set comprises an indispensable color palette for mixing every conceivable portrait tint. Increase the opacity by mixing with opaque white and work in transparent layers for a deep effect. So we do know that opaque white is one of the colors in the set, but I'm curious about all the rest and so excited to try these. I purchased this set from Jerry's Artorama for $88.17. So these are definitely artist professional quality paint colors. They're not going to be your cheaper paints. So my hope is that these will be able to paint just about any portrait tone imaginable. The goal with this video is to explore a number of different skin tones with this set and see if this mixing set can do what it says it can do. All right, so the first step, of course, is to unbox these. And I do think packaging says a lot about the quality of paints. Higher quality packaging definitely makes a difference. Yeah, really nice metal tin, just what you would expect. Oh, let's look at this quote. It says, "Looking at the world behind the reality, feeling how the elements adapt to a single will, working with colors and techniques that give shape to this deepest of inspiration." That is art. How fun is that? I've never seen a box that had a quote on it like that. All right, so let's check out this little set. Nicely branded on the inside. And like most pro sets, each half pan is individually wrapped. So we'll need to unpackage those before we can do our swatches. Rembrandt watercolors are professional quality paints and are part of a line of quality art products made by Royal Talens, which also has a wonderful student line of watercolors called Van Gogh. They are made in Holland, and according to the website, this color range is made from the purest pigments and purest quality gum arabic for brilliant and constant colors. The metal tin includes the following colors: opaque white, yellow ochre, azo yellow light, azomethine green yellow, benzimidazoline orange, vermilion, burnt sienna, ultramarine deep, cerulean blue phthalo, permanent red violet, phthalo green, and ivory black. All the colors in this set have the highest light fast rating of 100 years or more under museum conditions. As I unwrapped each pan, I was pleased to see how easy these were to open. Some manufacturers tend to use what I would consider an unnecessary amount of glue on the paper, making it a pain to unwrap. But these were easy to open with just one pop of a palette knife. Each wrapper has the pigment info on it, which I made sure to write down on my swatch chart. I thought it was interesting that the wrappings had two different brand styles. I'm not sure if they're going through a rebranding or something, but the packaging was a little inconsistent. Some of the wrappers also include the light fast rating along with the pigment number, but most did not have this printed on. Either way, no big deal. There's the set. Beautiful colors, perfectly filled and all very clean and even. You can see there's also a size 4 red sable travel brush included in the set, which I didn't actually try out today, but I'll have to give it a try on another day. For my swatch chart and portrait sketches, I'm using Arches 140-pound cold pressed paper. This is just a 9 by 12 inch pad. I used a Sharpie to draw out the swatch chart, carefully labeling the colors and pigment numbers. 9 out of the 12 colors are single pigment, which many people argue makes the cleanest and the most beautiful mixes in watercolor painting. In addition to creating swatches that range in value from dark to light, I like to paint over a dark Sharpie line, which allows me to test the transparency of each color. Starting with opaque white, PW6, which is a color I never use, I was immediately impressed with how smooth it was. The pans easily activate with just a damp brush, and the opacity of this white is really solid. The next color is yellow ochre. This is PY43 and PY42. I love how transparent Rembrandt's version of yellow ochre is, since I usually use Holbein yellow ochre, which is semi-opaque. The transparency of this pigment will allow for nice glazes and skin tones. Azo yellow light, PY154, is a gorgeous, cooler yellow, similar to my Daniel Smith Hansa yellow light, but again with the very attractive quality of being completely transparent. Something I figured out early on when I was first learning to use watercolors was that glazing and layering works best with fully transparent colors. Semi-opaque colors tend to look muddy when layered over the top. Azomethine green yellow, PY129, is similar to Daniel Smith Nickel Azo Yellow, a wonderful gold color. This one was also beautifully transparent. This Benzimidazzolone Orange, PO72, is a new color for me. It's semi-transparent and just this beautiful glowing orange. Generally, I use Winsor & Newton Transparent Orange, which is PO107, almost all the time for skin tones, so although I doubt this will replace that color for me, it is a nice substitute. The warm red in this set is Vermilion, PR254 and PY154. It's a smooth, transparent scarlet color, which will be necessary for warmer skin tones like pink cheeks, the fingertips, and the ears. The Rembrandt Burnt Sienna is the same PBR7 pigment as my favorite Daniel Smith Burnt Sienna, and it's a must-have color on my palette. I was happy to see that they placed this color right next to Ultramarine Deep, PB29, perhaps with the understanding that many watercolor artists, myself included, love using this combo of Burnt Sienna and Ultramarine for shadow tones and skin. I also really love this Cerulean Blue Phthalo. It's such a creamy, bright blue. This one is a mixed pigment blue. It combines PB15 and PW4. Another new color for me is this Permanent Red Violet, PV19, although it's not really new because PV19 is used in most alizarin crimsons, which is actually another staple on my typical palette of portrait colors. It's necessary to have a cool red in your palette for all kinds of skin tones, and this one is just gorgeous. The placement of the red violet next to Phthalo Green, PG7, is also no accident. In case you were wondering, but why is there no purple in this set? You can actually make a gorgeous purple by combining red violet with Phthalo Green. I'll show you this combo in action when I demonstrate some of these mixes with portrait sketches later on in this video. And the last color is Ivory Black, PBK6. As the only dark in the set, it's necessary not only for black eyes and hair, etc., but also as a mixer. What I love about Ivory Black is that it is semi-transparent versus, say, Lamp Black, which is fully opaque. So you can use it in mixes as well. So there are all the colors all swatched out. Time to take these for a test drive. I chose 5 different photos to paint. These are images from Unsplash and Pixabay, all with a variety of skin tones and hair color. I started with a small portrait sketch of a fair, red-haired woman. I did a loose thumbnail sketch in pencil, trying to capture essential proportions and shadow shapes. My first wash was a watery mix of the Benzimidazzolone Orange and Red Violet. This created a perfect, peachy base layer of color. I painted the shadow side of the face and hair with a light wash of burnt sienna, adding a light tint of ultramarine for a suggestion of cool color within the shadow. I stuck with these same colors, layering with darker mixes. For the eyes and mouth, I used Ivory Black to paint dark details and introduced some of the vermilion for the red lips and hair. My next thumbnail sketch was another fair-skinned woman, but her skin is more pink and her hair is very dark. My base wash was a mix of Azo Yellow Light and Permanent Red Violet, a little heavier on the red violet for that pink tone. I used Ultramarine Deep again for the cool shadow tone on the left side of the face, and Ivory Black for the hair with some of the red violet in areas of light. A second wash consisted of more warm colors like vermilion and red violet, but I had to keep the mixes watery and light. You have to be so subtle with these skin tones. For even darker values in the skin, I used a mix of the red violet and yellow ochre, and I combined both of my reds for the lips. The third thumbnail sketch used all of my yellows. I started with the azomethine green yellow for the girl's knit hat, and I used a much more watery version of the same color as my base wash in the skin. Yellow ochre turned out to be the perfect color as a base tone for her reddish blonde hair. For the shadow on her neck, I started with ultramarine, and while that was wet, I quickly dropped in burnt sienna. This is one of my favorite ways to block in shadow tones and skin really fast. I used more layers of burnt sienna, orange, and red violet to build up the warm skin tones in her cheek and along the jawline. Ivory Black and burnt sienna were great for the dark eye and lip details. The final strong brush strokes on her cheek were vermilion, and I had a chance to dip into my Cerulean Blue Phthalo for the first time for that background wash. My fourth portrait sketch is a young man of Asian descent. His skin is more tan and his hair is black, so for this one I began with Cerulean Blue as a cool undertone. This is a somewhat surprising, but another great way to start a portrait. While the blue was still wet, I dropped in a layer of yellow ochre everywhere that needed to go darker, leaving the highlights untouched. Then I switched to burnt sienna. I think men are so fun to paint because, for some reason, at least for me, I feel like I can paint them with bolder brush strokes than women. This reference also had a strong light and shadow side, which makes it so much easier to judge your values. I continue to go darker with mostly burnt sienna, ultramarine, and ivory black, adding some red violet in the shadow tones and a mix of burnt sienna and vermilion for the lips. Just for kicks, I added some more blue to the right side and a background wash to help create a sense of space. My last thumbnail sketch is a man of African descent with beautiful dark skin and striking bone structure. Here was my opportunity to use phthalo green for the first time. After sketching him on in pencil, I brushed on a tinted wash of the phthalo green all over the face, just avoiding the highlighted top lip. Then I mixed up some red violet to drop in wet on wet in the shadow areas, the forehead, the eye sockets, cheeks, and chin. Ivory black was perfect once again for the hair and dark facial features. As I gradually darkened the skin with multiple layers, I continued to adjust my colors and values using a combination of the red violet and the phthalo blue, with the occasional burnt sienna mixed in wherever I needed more of a brown and less purple. I used black for the upper lip, chin, and shirt, and a hint of vermilion to add life and warmth to that lower lip. Each thumbnail sketch took between 15 and 20 minutes, and I was able to learn so much about this new Rembrandt set just by playing with the colors and creating a wide variety of mixes. There were 3 colors that I used in every single one of these paintings, and they were the orange, the ivory black, and the permanent red violet. For anyone trying out new paints, I encourage you to do the same thing. Just play and paint with your colors. While swatching is a valuable exercise, you can take it a step further and just jump in with some small paintings, and you'll become so much better acquainted with your new paints. Really quick, if you want to learn more about painting watercolor portraits, check out my Watercolor Mastery membership. There are tons of great tutorials, over a dozen portrait-specific tutorials, just so you can work on those skin tones and on your blending. I'll leave a link in the description so you can check that out. Alright, some final thoughts on this Rembrandt portrait selection. I think it absolutely can do as it has promised and paint every skin tone imaginable, and that's just because it's a well-fitted set of 12. It's got all the yellows and the reds and the blues you would need. You've got your mixers like your burnt sienna, your ivory black, your phthalo green, so you really could produce any skin tone you can imagine. You do need to develop a basic understanding of how to mix those colors together and how to adjust your values, because with skin tones it's all about value adjustment, color temperature shifts. It's very subtle within skin tones. It takes a lot of practice, but I think this is a wonderful selection. Do I think you need to buy a dedicated portrait color set if you want to paint portraits? No. You can use any set you have to create beautiful portraits as long as you have the basics, which is 2 sets of primaries, warm and cool. I do think Rembrandt did a really great job of picking out these colors specifically for portraits. Some of them are really similar to colors I already used, but I was so pleasantly surprised by some of the newer colors that I've never really used before, like the permanent red violet and the benzimidazole orange. That one was so perfect for mixing together with the violet to create a super nice light wash for Caucasian skin and for some of the others, as you saw. So if you decide you want a set of portrait colors like this, I think it would come in handy, especially if you love painting portraits. I plan on taking this with me on my Wednesday night figure painting group sessions. I can highly recommend this set. The Rembrandt paints are super high quality, creamy, wonderful dispersion. I loved them. Leave me your comments below. If you've tried Rembrandt paints, tell me about your experience with those. I'd love to hear from you. Check out this next video all about using blue undertones to paint a portrait, and I'll see you over there.